Welcome back to another episode of Ballers, Beers, and Banter. I'm your host, Dave, back with a vengeance. Here with me, we'll call him Thing 1 and Thing 2, Anthony and Moose. What's up?
We can do anything under the sun. Thing 2 and Thing 1.
Is that a song?
Are you not aware of the Cat in the Hat?
Oh, is that? Oh, I just ever I'm not a big Dr. Seuss guy, except
but Moose put a jingle
the places
to
you will
it.
go.
He put it's a song, but he made his own
it's the cat. It's from the Dr. Seuss made a series of movies to go along with the books.
Oh, I didn't see.
I don't think Dr.
movies.
Seuss himself or herself made the movies, but
right.
yeah, we catch the drift. But I've always seen identical twins, wearing the T-shirts Thing 1, Thing 2.
Well, that's what it's from,
and it's from Dr. Seuss. It makes sense, and I probably should have known that, but I'm not up to date on my Dr. Seuss.
It's okay.
But I just wanted anything besides Champion 1 and Champion 2, because apparently every time I'm off the podcast, like yesterday on the live show, halftime I wasn't on, and the last podcast, it's all about the Champions podcast with Anthony and Moose.
Well, and I haven't said hello to our listeners yet. Hello.
There you go.
Well done. But it's good to be back with you guys. I'm still on vacation. Because when I vacation hard, but I'm taking time. I'm in Cambridge, Ontario. It looks like, if you're on YouTube, it looks like I'm in an attic, but it is a bedroom. It's very nice. But if you hear noises from downstairs, that's other Tontinis partying it up, having a great time. And I want to say good job on the last podcast, guys. You guys were dialed in last podcast. I mean, besides Anthony jumping all over the place and going from running back 13 to 18 and 19, and can we scroll back around here? Besides that, you guys did a great job. I loved it.
I got a little excited, like I mentioned on the podcast, but I had totally forgot our plan to follow the order, the consensus, and then I was just seeing all the discrepancies that we had, and I was
forgot the plan of going 13,
14,
14, 15.
Yeah, it's a tough plan to follow, I'll admit.
Well, I was looking at my 13 to 24, so that's what I was referencing due to the discrepancies. But
numbers are hard.
But a good thing Moose was there, brought it back where it needed to be.
Always a good thing Moose is there. Always brings back. But you guys were great. That's
the job of the host. So when you got there,
exactly. You guys were dialed in on your points and your arguments for or against the running backs. If you haven't listened to it, listeners, go back, listen to the running back rankings. It's crucial leading into your draft. Hopefully, if you have drafted, you can go. Maybe you can start using that for trade ideas. If you haven't drafted, you got to be dialed in and getting. And I think most people I've talked to are drafting this week, and especially Labor Day weekend. So we're getting you fired up and ready for your draft. Today we will be going over wide receiver rankings, and draft rankings. So get into that. Be excited for that. But no, I thought last episode was great. I did neglect Darrell Henderson. Moved him. I forgot to put him in there. He would have been high end or low end RB2 for me, so that's my bad on Darrell. But now with the news, should we just jump right into it?
Well, what news are you jumping into?
Sony Michel traded to the Rams.
Oh, okay. I thought you were, because other news came out today. Sean McVay confirmed that Darrell Henderson would still be a very large part of that running back.
Of course.
Well,
but
we all knew that.
Well, some people are getting excited about Sony Michel being a lead back. Someone
Adam Schefter
in this conversation.
No, I messaged you guys what Adam Schefter said.
Adam Schefter did not say that. He was quoting the guy from The Athletic who put it in his headline but never mentioned it in the article.
Okay.
He's not going to be the lead back.
No, but Darrell Henderson won't. Before this trade, Darrell Henderson was, by all accounts, gonna have to de facto be a workhorse back. Bell cow back, get pretty much everything. Xavier Jones, he's seventh round. Was he seventh round undrafted free?
Yeah, but there was a lot of hype behind him. That's why people were
a lot of hype. But he's
Henderson.
Still young rookie. Like Henderson was gonna be the guy, but now with Sony Michel there, now Henderson's just like in his traditional role. So I think it brings Henderson back down to reality. So whereas before he was a locked-in RB2 with upside, to me now he's like upside RB2. Maybe RB3. That's me. And Sony Michel, who knows? I know no one's excited to draft Sony Michel, but he will have relevance this year.
Oh, for sure. But he had inconsistent relevance on the Patriots in a crowded backfield. I mean, I mentioned the point yesterday. The only difference with Sony Michel now is that there's a different coaching staff, and maybe if they're willing to use him a little more, maybe he'll be more consistent than he was on the Patriots. But he's by no means going to take over RB1. He's not going to compete for the RB1 spot with Henderson there.
He's there for depth and to vulture touchdowns.
Right. And all the hype on
touches.
Xavier Jones, it makes me think that people were getting overly hyped on him, and he wasn't actually that like good enough to be a solid RB2. So we know Henderson is injury prone. So Sony Michel
already injured. Already injured.
His thumb.
His thumb.
So I mean, Sony Michel Musa is correct. He's insurance, but he still has enough talent to be good for regular football. But fantasy, I mean, to me, you don't want any part of this team.
So what you guys are saying is it's only one thumbs up for Darrell Henderson.
Maybe not even.
But yeah, I would say minimum or maximum one thumb up.
Maximum one thumb up. All right. Well, sticking with running backs, and what changed since the last podcast is huge news. Travis Etienne, Liz Frank injury, or he has to have the Liz Frank surgery, whatever it's called. He injured his foot. He's out for essentially the season. We have written down here 12 weeks at least, but usually with this, the same thing Deebo Samuel had last year.
Maybe he goes and sees Carson Wentz surgeon.
Different foot thing. Different foot thing. Liz Frank is very specific. It's what Deebo Samuel had last year, and it's very specifically very difficult to move laterally. So, which I don't know, is that important in football? I can't remember. Moving from side to side. So, you got a 300-pound guy trying to tackle you. You want to move side to side comfortably. So Travis Etienne essentially out for the season. Heartbreaking news, because I mean we were all pretty pumped for Travis Etienne. We were hyping him up, and then so he's out. James Robinson, guys, James Robinson, who we all had, I think low end RB2. We had him ranked in the 20s.
I had him outside the top 24.
You had him outside the top 24, Anthony. Wild. I know you said I copped out by putting them back to back in the rankings, but I mean that's where I think that I would draft them, like right around there. I might even have drafted Travis Etienne before, to be honest. But now James Robinson, does he move back up?
Yeah, he did.
How high does he move back up?
I don't know. I'll be honest. We Anthony and I were talking about it last night. Trevor Lawrence does not look good. I don't think the Jaguars are going to be very good this season.
But
we know they're not going to be good. But hold on, Moose. Were they good last season?
No, but nobody
game.
But nobody knew who James Robinson was last season either.
Well, after a couple weeks, you know who he is, and he ended up finishing. What did he finish, guys? 5th, 6th in half-point PPR on the year.
I mean, I've still been pretty pumped about James Robinson, even with Travis Etienne there.
Right.
I said you're going to expect the same, the same from James Robinson, but I don't know. I just the Jaguars as a whole don't thrill me. But if you end up drafting James Robinson, you'll be fine. He's a fine pick to get.
Right.
But I would highly anticipate regression.
Yes.
No doubt. But the very first, when we did our way too early rankings, and Anthony, I know you're keen to speak here, so I'll let you go in a second. When we did our way too early rankings, we had all moved James Robinson down. We did it right after the NFL season, right after the Super Bowl. We had all moved James Robinson down because we're like, he was getting 95% of touches and he was getting tons of touchdowns. So we all moved him down, kind of. I think we had him like 15, 16 territory. And then we moved him down even further with Travis Etienne there. But now he's out. So now I want to hear. So, Anthony, where do you have him ranked?
So, where I have him ranked? Well, before,
or whatever you wanted to say.
Well, I wanted to say that it was the same point you were making, that last year they weren't good. And usually when teams aren't good and playing from behind, the running back is not usually the one that is generating the fantasy points for your team. It's usually the receivers, because garbage time points, and they're just airing the ball down the field to try and get touchdowns. So James Robinson was successful on a bad team. But contrary to that, you got to look that it's a different coaching staff that was looking to implement Travis Etienne more, and which is why I said later on in the season, I mean, James Robinson is still a great talent, and why wouldn't you use him? I thought Travis Etienne might become the RB1 and the better fantasy option later on, mid to end of season. But now Carlos Hyde is there, who was a viable fantasy option, like waiver wire pickup last season, depending on matchup, especially when Chris Carson was injured. So you got Carlos Hyde there to maybe take some touches away and important touches away from James Robinson, especially in the red zone. So I think James Robinson, he's one of these players that even though he finished so high, I don't think he's the type of player that will be year in, year out in that range of where he finished last year, which was in the top 12. So
seventh. In half point PPR, just checked it.
He was
seventh.
So I ranked him at 17th, as the 17th running back that I would draft behind Josh Jacobs, ahead of Chris Carson, because Chris Carson's injury prone. He's not going to wow you. He's on a terrible team, and he'll get majority touches, but it's just, will he have those 20-point weeks, or is he going to be a 10, 11-point guy week in, week out, and not really be that boost to your fantasy team?
So to be clear, your new ranking of him is about 16th. 16
is 17th once the Etienne injury happened. I think I had him at 26. Then I moved him up to.
I always had him at 15th.
You had him at 15 still. Do you move him up with Travis Etienne gone?
Maybe like 1 or 2 spots, but not really.
Really? So I mean, it makes sense if you thought Travis Etienne wasn't going to impact him in any way, but how did you think he wasn't going to impact him in any way? A new stud running back that they drafted in the first round.
Because why not run James Robinson? They only got 1 more year left on his contract.
Sure, but so to me, it was more about catching passes out of the backfield, because James Robinson did a lot of that last year as well. But Travis Etienne was clearly going to be the guy catching passes out of the backfield, but now he's gone.
But it makes sense where Moose ranked him. Moose ranked him at 15th. So Moose technically did look at Travis Etienne being there, and he just we talk about
but he hasn't changed them.
But he hasn't changed them. I think, but he said he would move him up a couple spots. I know he's a little lower. Like, remember, this is our personal. We're not talking consensus anymore. We're talking about our personal draft rankings.
Would you rather Antonio Gibson?
This is you.
Would you rather Antonio Gibson or James Robinson?
Gibson.
Would you rather Najee Harris or James Robinson?
Najee
Harris.
Would you rather CH or James Robinson?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Okay.
But why don't you go to the guys near your?
That's what I'm doing. So would you prefer Austin Eckler or James Robinson?
Austin Eckler.
So Josh Jacobs or James Robinson?
James Robinson.
So yeah. So you'd move him up 1 or 2 spots.
From where you had him.
Okay. Yeah.
I get it.
And it's personal preference. This is our personal draft rankings. It's not where we think they'd finish. It's who we take over.
But you obviously agree with that then. That he's more like a 13th, 14th.
Yeah, but we moved them up to there after the injury. You kept him in the same spot.
So it's a moot point. Really, it's a moot point. It's really what we disagreed on is the impact Travis Etienne would have on James Robinson. But it's a moot point because he's gone. So I get it. I like it. Anyways, wide receivers is the topic of the day. So, but we have some more headlines to get through. Quarterbacks, guys. So official week 1 starters in the quarterback world. Week 1. Trevor Lawrence, Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, all announced as the official QB1 for week 1. Are you surprised by any of these, and what are some of the fantasy impacts for our listeners?
No surprises.
No.
I'm slightly surprised by Teddy Bridgewater, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Because Drew Lock looked awesome in preseason. But I don't know what the news was in camp, because camp's probably vastly more.
The news was he apparently threw a ton of interceptions.
Yes,
yeah,
which
is what he does. Drew Lock is one game he'll look amazing, and one game he'll be completely terrible. Where you're like, what team am I watching right now? Teddy Bridgewater, like we mentioned before when you were on the podcast last time, that he's not going to wow you with a lot of deep balls, but I mean, we've seen Tom Brady in the past be successful not throwing deep balls, and we saw 2 successful wide receivers on Carolina last year. So I mean, there's a slew of talent on Denver. You have, Sutton, we don't know if he's going to be there week 1. That's he's still not practicing right now. Jerry Jeudy looked better with Teddy Bridgewater, and I made that point in preseason that Jerry Jeudy did not look good with Drew Lock and did not look good with Drew Lock last year as well. And with Teddy Bridgewater in there, he was hitting Jerry Jeudy. He was also hitting KJ Hamler, which has a rapport with both quarterbacks, it seems like. So, I mean.
Yeah. And I heard you guys talking about this last podcast episode, and I think Teddy Bridgewater is better in all realms except throwing how far he can throw the ball, like the strength of his arm compared to Drew Lock. But he's better at everything else. So I think it probably is good. You know, I'm changing my tune a little bit. It probably is good for the wide receivers and Noah Fant. I think Noah Fant, watch out for Noah Fant.
Leg injury
with Teddy Bridgewater. How long is he out for?
I don't know. Just saw the headline today.
They just said he's
no, I remember that. Yeah. Well, it could be Albert Oquiggenbaum. Watch out for Albert Oquiggenbaum, who's an athletic specimen. But I heard you guys talk about Jerry Jeudy versus Cortland Sutton, and I think Moose is on the Jerry Jeudy side of it, and Anthony, you were on the Cortland Sutton side of it a little more. And I think you guys are right with Teddy Bridgewater in. I lean more Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
And Moose, you were talking about Jerry Jeudy as a deep threat, but Jerry Jeudy is a route runner. He could, of course, can be a deep threat. He's super fast, but he's a route runner.
But
like,
hit him in
he
stride.
can run any route. Yeah, and he is going to make people miss. So he can be deadly with Teddy Bridgewater. Because Teddy Bridgewater to me is more of a he's smart quarterback. Not super successful. I don't think he's never thrown more than 15 touchdowns in a season.
Well, he's been injured a lot.
He's also a career backup. So
exactly. But I think with Jerry, if he can make some timing routes with Jerry Jeudy, that could be clutch. So Jerry Jeudy, I agree. Put him on the radar. Cortland Sutton, I don't know how many. And KJ Hamler is a huge sleeper. You're right, Anthony. He could be a sleeper. Put him on your list for. We have an extensive list of who you should pick with that last pick in your draft flyer.
Yeah.
KJ Hamler's got to be added to that list. It's extensive.
I think you could even take KJ Hamler
earlier. Maybe earlier. Yeah.
In that Michael Pittman Jr. Area of your draft
category. Well, if Carson Wentz back officially.
Yeah,
supposed to be back for week 1. Whew, the Michael Pittman hype train, Jonathan Taylor hype train is all back.
And, well, especially with T.Y. Hilton dealing with an injury.
Correct. That's good for your boy Paris Campbell.
Oh, weird. So is it like T.Y. Hilton dealing with an injury? You could probably have posted that in any year ever in fantasy football, and it would stand. T.Y. Hilton dealing with an injury, and you'd be like, is it 2014, 15, 2021? So yeah, wild. Okay, what do you think about Andy Dalton and starting week 1?
We called it.
Yeah, I don't think it. I mean, it's not that much of a surprise. They literally told us week in and week out it was going to be Andy. It's Andy. I mean, we've seen him play with not the starters, and it didn't look good. But I think with the starters out there, I mean, Andy did an all right job with the Cowboys. He did an all right job when he was in Cincinnati. I think what we can expect is all right to potentially a little bit better.
But the Bears are so. I mean, we won't make this the Anthony rant segment.
No, talk to us, Anthony. No, go
hit us with the rant.
This is a safe space. Hit us with it.
The Bears are stupid. Andy Dalton's your guy, and you don't put him out there with guys that he'll actually be playing with in the regular season. I know some teams are very careful with their starters and everything, but this is a guy coming to a new team on a Bears team that usually struggles on offense and struggles with the QB position. And I mean, you're not doing Andy Dalton any favors with the fan base because Justin Fields plays like almost 3 quarters.
Yeah, we don't know if Andy requested to play. Are you saying why did they play him in the preseason?
No, I'm saying why didn't they play? I'm saying that they should have played him more, let him be in there for a full quarter, like some of the other teams did with their quarterbacks. I know there's risk of injury, but he doesn't look comfortable. And I mean, we said, but he's not playing with the starters. We'll see week 1. But I mean, the Bears going into the season with we'll see how Andy Dalton is. It's not good.
Hey, it's better than having your little guy franchise get blindsided by a defense that wants to crush him.
Yeah. I mean, so I think I might be going more to Dave's side with how early Justin Fields will get in, but I still don't think it's that week, but I think it's earlier than I originally thought. I think it would be like 6, 7.
But then how quick do you think he'll come back out?
He won't come back out.
No. Once he goes in, he won't relinquish that job for 10 years. Justin Fields.
Unless he takes one of those hits again.
But that's on the O-line.
Hey, it's still getting your quarterback hit.
But right.
Yeah, but Andy Dalton's going to
starting O-line, right?
Andy Dalton's going to take those same hits, and Justin Fields, he just needs to get used to the NFL and work on his awareness because
maybe take a year to do that and then come and be really awesome
listen,
next
hold
year.
on. I think there's a difference between what we think is going to actually happen and what we think would be best for Justin Fields and what we think would be best for the Chicago Bears. 3 different things. So what would be best for Justin Fields, I agree, is the Patrick Mahomes strategy, right? Let him sit for a year, learn, quote unquote, from Andy Dalton or from whoever, watch the game, step in. That would be best for him personally in his career. What's best for the Bears? Not sure. That could go either way. What's going to happen? Justin Fields is going to play because there's too much pressure.
What's good for Fields and what's good for the Bears is the same thing.
There's a lot. Hold on, though. Matt Nagy has a lot of pressure to produce this year. And the Bears fans are hungry for
but they're not
good team.
But it's not good for him to send the franchise quarterback out and just get destroyed.
But wait, there's something you're missing here. So maybe you'll stick by what you said, but let's take Trevor Lawrence, for example, or any bad team that drafts a QB 1 overall or in the top 10 of the rookie draft. So we're talking like Cleveland with Baker Mayfield. We're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars year in, year out. I mean, they haven't hit on their quarterbacks very often, but would you bench if you had Dalton on Jacksonville? Would you start Dalton? No. These are once in a lifetime talents, and Justin Fields, I feel, is ready to start. Whether he was on the Bears or he was on another team, he's ready to start week 1. And Trevor Lawrence, he's going to take these hits.
The Bears, Trevor Lawrence doesn't look that confident.
But these young quarterbacks are going to take hits. Like, I mean, there are a lot of teams that have bad O-lines. So, I mean, I don't think that's a reason to not play Justin Fields if Justin Fields is already
but
NFL ready.
We can all agree, because we've all said it, the hits are substantially bigger in the NFL. So getting blindsided in the NFL is a much bigger deal than getting hit by a college defense.
But it's not going to be better later on in the season. So, or next year. It's not necessarily
but it is, because you get better at having your eyes up and being aware of what's happening around you
with practice. So the fact that he got nailed, thank goodness he's okay, by the way, because that was nasty. But it was a penalty, by the way, right? He went head to head.
I would imagine it was.
I'm sure it was penalty. It's exactly the play that you're not, that they want to get out of football, hitting the quarterback helmet first, helmet to principal point of contact being the head. Anyways, you learn. He'll learn from that. And Justin Fields, 6'3", 226 last I checked, and runs. He was like one of the fastest guys they clocked in preseason. He's gonna be okay. He's gonna be okay. He's gonna bounce back. I word. Ask me if I'm worried. Ask me if I'm worried. Not worried. All right. Other headlines you guys want to talk about? DeAndre Swift potentially not ready for week 1. What do you think about that?
Perfect for my marquee de la mid round. Jamal Williams. So I mean, this was the worry that a lot of people had about DeAndre Swift. There was all like, is he like an every down back? Is he going to be the main offensive weapon for Detroit? Jamal Williams gets signed. We hear, I was going to say, what's the coach's name from the Chargers?
Anthony Lynn.
Dan Campbell.
Anthony Lynn, the running back guy. He talked up Swift, he talked up Jamal Williams, who's going to be the guy. It's all over the place. And now Swift dealing with hampered by injury. I mean, Jamal Williams, I think he's going to be such a value for people's fantasy teams this year.
Fire sale. And I really think, so I know DeAndre Swift is very good as a pass catcher, but so is Jamal Williams. And I think Anthony Lynn's one of those guys who's thinking pass blocking first in those third down scenarios. And he's going to be like, Jamal Williams is who he trusts. So I really think Jamal Williams in half PPR and especially full PPR is one of those running backs that is going to, his value is going to increase because of pass catching. So I would mark him down as your marquee and go after him if you're in half PPR and full PPR. Give me money.
I mean, on the Chargers, Eckler and Melvin Gordon, Roman numeral 3, were able to both be effective for fantasy. So, I mean, this is the guy to do it over there in Detroit.
Oh, yeah. And lastly, I got on the list, Julio Jones. Not lastly. I got 2 more on the list here, but Moose, feel free to chime in. I got Julio Jones taking part in individual drills. Fantastic. You draft Julio, like wherever you were going to draft him. Any news you hear on Julio is not going to change where you were going to draft him. So if you're Moose, you're not drafting him anywhere.
Don't ruin it. We're gonna get into.
I've said it multiple times on multiple episodes.
Well, we'll talk about it
not
later,
drafting Julio Jones.
But the lingering injuries is a thing with Julio Jones. So if you believe in him, you're going to take him regardless of those headlines. More importantly, Tyrell Williams is injured. How serious is this Tyrell Williams injury? And can we hit the launch button on sleeper Amon-Ra St. Brown? Now, later, when? When are we hitting it?
There's nothing exciting about Detroit.
No.
Except that someone has to catch the ball. I know TJ Hawkinson, tight end, is the top target, but a receiver is going to catch the balls. And Tyrell Williams looked good in preseason. He had like a connection with Jared Goff, and I was like, oh, maybe it's Tyrell Williams. No, but with him out, I got to go Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sleeper. He's on the list. With the
I just
KJ Hamler, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I just wouldn't encourage anyone to like wildly go after him.
Like, no, he's a late round flyer, but you can get him in most drafts. You can get him with your last pick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't. He doesn't get a sudden boost.
Yeah, don't draft him in round 8. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying late round flyer. Listen carefully, listeners. With your last pick or one of your very last picks besides kicker and defense, you can take Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's on the list, along with KJ Hamler, Brian Edwards.
I think you take Brian Edwards a little bit earlier in the last round.
Would. Yeah, you would. Earlier in the last round.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Other headlines, Moose. You had more.
Yeah, Dak Prescott no longer on a pitch count. So,
okay.
If you've been watching Hard Knocks, you've seen him out there. He's throwing the ball. He was doing, last, or I guess earlier this week, he was doing only 11 on 11 drills, and he was passing fine. But I guess he was still on a pitch count, and I guess now he's healthy again.
Pitch count, for listeners, if you're not familiar, is a baseball term, and it's restricting a pitcher, or in this case, a quarterback, to a certain number of throws to preserve their shoulder, preserve their arm. So they were worried about the shoulder injury that he had, and that he was on a pitch count, as Moose said. Now he's not. We'll get into this later, but we'll get into it later. I'll bring it up when we talk about CeeDee Lamb. We're going to talk about CeeDee Lamb? Yeah, we're going to talk about it. So, other headlines, Moose.
Saquon Barkley back at practice.
Ooh, baby. But
I'm still worried.
But that's not a new headline. That's not. He was off the PUP list, but now he's back in practice.
Today I believe was his first day doing drills and being in practice. Okay, but we were talking about quarterback battles, and then we only spoke about Chicago.
And Teddy Bridgewater and Trevor Lawrence.
Teddy Bridgewater. What about Cam and Mac?
Well, it's not on our list. They haven't announced an official starter, but it's leaning more Mac Jones, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Moose just swore on the podcast. Wow. Talk about a Patriots fan. Moose.
What swear word did I use?
HE double hockey sticks.
It's supposed to be heck. I mean,
is that on the list? Is that on the list of
it was. I said something.
It's on my list. I mean, it's on my list. I'm offended.
What the heck are you talking about here?
Yeah.
Get serious.
Gosh, dang it. Get some Kirk Cousins on you, all right?
Dang it.
No, I think it will be Mac Jones. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on Mac Jones. I skipped over him. I purposely did not draft him in Dynasty because I was like, I just don't believe in him. But he could be good. Could be good. He's certainly better than Cam Newton at this point, right?
Yeah, my opinions on Mac Jones and Zach Wilson have definitely changed since the preseason because they both look very confident out there.
Yeah, we'll see. It is preseason. We'll see. Moose, you're really you're turning into a real preseason overhyper, eh?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm overhyping anything.
Well, on that Mac Jones train and Zach Wilson train, I mean, you changed your mind pretty quick on those guys.
No, well, I mean,
I don't think
young talent.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned that anyone should draft them at any point.
I'm just messing with you. I'm just grinding your gears. Just trying to get a heck of a lot out of you. All right. Any other headlines, Moose? Or can we get into the meat of the day?
We can get into the meat of the day.
All right. The meat of the day, the main meal, your main course, ladies and gentlemen, is wide receiver rankings. So what we're going to do is go through, list our consensus top 12 wide receiver rankings, and then not really talk about them much, except for some discrepancies. And then we're going to get into our what we call wide receiver 2, which would be the second wide receiver on your team, or ranking 13 to 24. That is in a 12-team league. Typically, the second wide receiver would fall in that category, 13 to 24. And we usually do 12-team league, half-point PPR as our standard. If you're a new listener, of which we have many, because we just keep getting more and more and more people listening to Ballers, Beers, and Banter, because we're awesome. So, you guys ready?
I'm ready, Anthony.
All right.
I am very ready.
Me too. So I'm going to list our top 12 consensus wide
Hmm.
receivers. Here we go. Number 1, Devontae Adams. Number 2, Tyreek Hill. Number 3, Stephon Diggs. Number 4, Calvin Ridley. Number 5, DeAndre Hopkins. Number 6, Keenan Allen. Number 7, DK Metcalf. Number 8, Justin Jefferson. Number 9, Allen Robinson, Roman numeral 2. Number 10, Terry McLaurin. Number 11, A.J. Brown. Number 12, CeeDee Lamb, rounding out the list. That is our top 12 consensus wide receiver draft rankings, where we would draft these players. So what are the big discrepancies here, guys, amongst the top 12?
I mean, I'll kick this off with this one because I know a lot of people are going to be mad listening to this episode at me. I don't have CeeDee Lamb in the top 12. I have him just outside. I have him at 14 on my personal draft rankings list. I believe Moose has him the highest at 10th, and you have him at 12th. My skepticism is not on the talent. I do think he will be the number 1 wide receiver this year. But if everyone is healthy, so Moose's sleeper is Michael Gallup. They got 2 very good tight ends, Jarwin and Schultz. And they have Amari Cooper there. If Amari Cooper is healthy, last season, I'm looking at the stats. Amari Cooper finished ahead of him, but I mean, Dak wasn't there the whole season, but their stats were fairly similar. So if Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb finish with the same stat line, I mean, do you guys have Amari Cooper ranked that high? No, because you think CeeDee Lamb will take over. I think he's 1 year removed from being a top 5 wide receiver. So I do believe his ceiling is top 5 wide receiver, but I think it's crowded for now. But if Amari Cooper pulls one of his, I'm going to get injured and miss a bunch of games. That's where the gap will be. That's where the gap will widen. But I do think with everyone there, especially, I'm lower on Michael Gallup. I was a believer in his talent when he made it to Dallas and was upset when they drafted CeeDee Lamb, because that means Michael Gallup's the one to fall out of the 3. But everyone is there. Everyone is healthy. Everyone is starting. So I think Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb stats will be fairly similar. But I do only have him
similar to each other or similar to last year?
Similar to each other.
Okay.
So
Fair.
like over 1,000 yards for the both of them. CeeDee Lamb finished with 935 last year. Amari Cooper, 1,014, 5 TDs and 5 tutties. And then CeeDee Lamb had 5 tutties as well. So
yeah,
they'll be fairly similar.
And just so everyone knows, we have CeeDee Lamb ranked Moose the highest at 10th. I have him at 12th. Anthony at 14th. So not a huge discrepancy.
Right.
And Moose and I both have Amari Cooper at 18. We'll get into him later. And Anthony at 17. So almost no discrepancy there with Amari Cooper. So Moose, retort.
He's going to be amazing. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
What a great response.
He's the wide receiver 1 on that team right now. There's absolutely zero hype coming out of Cowboys camp about Amari Cooper.
But why do you need hype about him? He's an established player.
Yeah, and sure. He's also established injuries many years in a row. He's probably lost a step. I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be much better than Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's still going to be very good, but I don't see Amari Cooper outplaying CeeDee Lamb this season.
I mean, Anthony, you know who's very established wide receiver? Julio Jones. You know,
so
we don't have him ranked very high. What does established really mean?
Established means, okay, so we talk about Amari Cooper injuries, so you can put him in the category of Julio Jones with injuries. Past 2 seasons, he's played all 16 games. Both seasons, he's had over 1,000 yards, 8 TDs in 2019, 5 tutties in 2020.
Anthony, CeeDee Lamb established himself in his rookie season with Andy Dalton.
And
he's got a healthy Dak Prescott back. He's going to be amazing.
But if Amari Cooper doesn't wow anyone and he does the exact same thing, that still affects CeeDee Lamb from being a top 5 guy. Like, I mean, I have him at 14.
But I think the Dallas offense can feed both of them.
Yes, well that's
what I'm saying. They'll feed both of them, but
that is almost a guarantee. So remember, Dak Prescott played 4 games last year. The Dallas defense was terrible. They might be a little bit better this year. but they were just flying. They were firing on all cylinders, Dallas offense. They were on pace for NFL records. Dak was on pace to throw for like 7,000 yards, which is just insane, unheard of. That won't happen, but he's pretty good for 5,000 yards. I think if Dak's healthy for the whole season, that Dallas offense 5,000 yards. So you're right, Anthony and Moose, that both CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper will be very good fantasy wide receivers if Dak's healthy for the whole year. But why then? Why are you keep putting Cooper above CeeDee Lamb, or why do you put CeeDee Lamb above Cooper? Anthony, respond to Moose.
Well, I put CeeDee Lamb ahead because I do think the lingering injuries is what will widen the gap between them. But I mean, Amari Cooper hasn't showed signs of slowing down. He's had, now I look back in 2018, he's had 3 seasons of over 1,000 yards. So let's say he just does 1,000 yards and he gets 5 touchdowns. It's still, they could both live together, but I just think it limits CeeDee Lamb from being that number 1 wide receiver on your team. He can get 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns as well. And if it might not be enough. So it might not be the 1,500. Look at the guys that are in the top 10, top 5 of fantasy production at the end of the year. What is their yardage like? What is the yardage like? Do you know?
Oh, it's going to be 1,100 yards.
So I'll tell you right now, 1,300, 1,200, 1,500, 1,300, 1,400, 1,400, 1,300. I don't think he can get to that because of Amari Cooper being there.
Hold on. What did CeeDee Lamb get last year?
CeeDee Lamb had 935 and 5
in his rookie season.
No OTAs, no Dak Prescott.
No Dak Prescott.
Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci. Okay, now here's the thing. To me, here's the only risk with CeeDee Lamb. The only way this guy's not finishing in the top 12 is if Dak Prescott doesn't play all 17 regular season games. And if Dak Prescott does get injured, and I hope he doesn't, I really like Dak Prescott. Dak clearly can support both these guys. And if you believe CeeDee's the number 1 wide receiver on that team, you should believe he's a top 12 wide receiver. If Dak gets injured, then all bets are off because the backups, it's not Andy Dalton this year.
Yeah.
It's Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush and
Gilbert Grape.
Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. So all bets are off. But if Dak's healthy the whole year, Zeke's good, CeeDee Lamb's a top 12 wide receiver for sure. I think, well, nothing's for sure, but as sure as it can get. And Amari Cooper will still be good too. Yeah. But CeeDee Lamb is clearly the most talented
I'm
back.
saying it just limits him. It doesn't limit him from being a wide receiver 1 on the team. It just limits him to get into that top 5 potential.
Anthony,
who cares?
Dak was on pace
because you're drafting your wide receiver 1. So let me point out something else to you.
Hold on. No. I want to refute that he can't be top 5. You talk about yardage, so they need to have like 1,300 yards to be top 5. Anthony, Dak was on pace to throw 7,000 yards. So let's say conservatively.
That's last year.
Okay, let's say conservatively he throws for 5,000 yards.
Yeah.
Okay, so that could be Cooper and CeeDee Lamb at 1,500 apiece. That's 3,000, still 2,000 yards. But that's for everybody else.
That's a tall order. So if you look back at history,
not that tall.
It's pretty tall.
Pretty short.
Let me bring up why.
What,
how many times has that happened in fantasy overall? It hasn't.
Well, so Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce did last year pretty well.
Okay,
with Patrick Mahomes, and the Dallas offense was on pace to do more than that.
But it's not. It was peppered to the 2 of them. There was 2 guys that received the ball. There was not that many players. So he talks about Michael Gallup, and we talk about Ezekiel Elliott coming back to form, and the 2 tight ends. Now I want to point out something else. How many teams support 2 wide receivers that end up in the top? So I'm looking at it now. Last year,
Seahawks, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett.
Right. That's 1.
Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones.
Where was Julio Jones last year? So that's a bad example. That's
when
not.
He was playing. When he was playing, he was.
I'm looking at last year.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
Not last year.
LA Rams, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, not last year.
Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen.
There you go. That's the other one. And
okay, but I mean, that's off the top of my head.
But it's hard. Basically, what you're saying is definitely possible, but it's a rare occasion that happens. And we talk about people not being able to duplicate such ridiculous stats.
Yeah,
he was on pace for
Anthony,
last year.
All right.
Your wide receiver 1 doesn't need to be in the top 5 to win.
But you want that
Who's
top
better?
5.
Anthony, just answer this. Who's better? Who's a better wide receiver? CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper?
CeeDee Lamb. I ranked him higher.
Okay.
But I'm just saying why I dropped him out of the top 12. I would rather.
But see, that's the thing. I think you've got it backwards.
Why?
Because it's Amari Cooper who drops down, and it's CeeDee Lamb who steps up.
And I dropped him. Well, where I rank CeeDee Lamb compared to last year is higher, and where I move Amari Cooper compared to last year is lower. But I don't think I would draft. So the guys that I have below CeeDee Lamb, or ahead of CeeDee Lamb, is if Michael Thomas comes back healthy, I think he will do better. But
okay, so a guy who literally
Michael Thomas,
is missing like half the season.
We're not sure.
No, we are.
We're pretty sure.
We're pretty sure.
Pretty sure he's missing like 6 weeks. He just had surgery.
Yeah, but he is the main guy there. He will be peppered towards the end of this.
Before we post that on Instagram, we'll let you do a little edit.
There's no edit needed.
Michael Thomas staying at 13 on your wide receiver rankings.
Yeah,
this is wild. What a wild episode. Listen, we better move on. Otherwise, we're going to have to title this episode after CeeDee Lamb, and we're running out of CeeDee Lamb puns. So let's move on. Let's talk about our wide receivers too. I know you want to talk about Chris Godwin, why you have, but he's next. He's next. Okay. So our wide that was so fun. Our wide receiver 2 consensus rankings. We're going in order. Anthony, we're going in order, starting at 13, then 14, then 15, and so on and so on. Okay, so 13 on our consensus list is Chris Godwin. And Anthony, I believe you were highest on him at 12. We all have him pretty similar. Okay,
well, hold on. Let's just talk about Godwin and Evans at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're one after another.
Okay, so we have Godwin at 13. We have Mike Evans at 14. Let's talk Tampa Bay.
They're both great options, but I want nothing to do with it.
So you've ranked them fairly high, Moose, but you don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, I mean they're going to be fantastic fantasy options, but I don't want the headache of looking every week and this week it was Mike Evans, this week it was Chris Godwin. I don't know. Or this week
Moose, you actually had Mike Evans at 12 on your list. You would draft him at 12?
He had him higher than all of us last year too. But
What's the deal?
It doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, he's going to let you down in playoffs. So I mean, can I really drop a guy that low?
So why would you draft him that high if he's going to let you down in playoffs?
Well, because I have to give people good information, Anthony. I'm not going to
tell them
rankings. I'm not going to tell them to draft Amari Cooper over CeeDee Lamb.
But you're giving
Neither did
advice
Anthony
of
for
how,
the record. Neither did Anthony for the record.
But you're giving advice on how you would draft. So you said you would never draft Mike Evans for the sole reason that he doesn't perform in the playoffs. So this is your personal draft rankings, but you would take him at 12th, wide receiver off the board, knowing that he'll let you down in the playoffs. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, well, I'm about giving good information, so.
But your good information is that he'll make you lose your playoff game.
Yeah,
and you're drafting him at 12.
So I've said it before. If you take Mike Evans, waiver accordingly. Make sure you have someone to replace him in the playoffs.
Listen, all right, listeners. Mike Evans is touchdown dependent wide receiver.
Yeah,
and he has a great rapport with Tom Brady. But there are so many weapons on the offense. We don't know what's going to happen. Chris Godwin was in half PPR the number 2 wide receiver on the year 2 seasons ago, which is why he now appears on our list at 13, right ahead of Mike Evans, because we feel he's going to get a lot of volume of passes from Tom Brady. He's reliable. He can do kind of everything in the offense, and he was playing injured last year. Mike Evans, if you want someone with high upside who 1 week could win you your week, the next week could lose you your week, that's Mike Evans. Okay, and I speak that. I think we're gonna get to it in our Reddit segment later on. Somehow I always end up with Mike Evans on my team.
Yeah,
and it can be tough. But the weeks he does get you 40 points with 3 touchdowns, like some stat lines, we joke about this. Sometimes he had like 1 year he had three touchdowns, 4 yards, and 3 receptions. Like it was just touchdown receptions he was getting, and that's Mike Evans. So he could be good for your fantasy team.
And I'm usually a believer in Mike Evans. I think this is finally the year where he'll drop out of that top 12 range. I think I'm very high on Godwin this year. I have a feeling I wasn't high on him last year when he was healthy, and then it worked out for me because I didn't draft him anywhere. But I do believe this is the year to draft him. Closing out this, we forgot a very big name that was earlier on our list that is in the CeeDee Lamb debate category. Moose has AJ Brown, who we have consensus at 11, outside the top 12.
How low does Moose have him? 14?
Well, that's where I have CeeDee Lamb.
It's a little low. It's a little low.
So like how I had to explain CeeDee Lamb, explain the AJ Brown.
I don't. I'm not high on AJ Brown at all.
But
is it an injury thing?
A little bit of injury thing. A little bit of Julio Jones being there now. I don't know. I'm just not.
I almost like. So when Julio Jones wasn't there, I was like, wow, AJ Brown's finally going to get the volume to propel him to the top. And let the listeners should know when you're looking back at last year's results, AJ Brown finished. You guys can drum it up like 18th or something like that. But on a points per, he missed the first 4 games with an injury, and the points per game basis, he was 5th overall in halfway PPR, right up there with the big names. With Julio Jones on Tennessee, I actually think it might help. It's going to help that offense overall. And now you can't really double team AJ Brown. You can't focus just on AJ Brown because Julio Jones is the threat on the other side. So I think with AJ Brown's efficiency, his yards after the catch, his touchdown threat, easily a top 12 wide receiver in halfway PPR this year. That's my take. It's my take. It's my 2 cents. We don't have to get super debatey into it. But did Anthony just jump on us again?
No, but it was earlier. You were talking about discrepancy.
I know, but it's technically kind of a jump. You jumped all over the map.
I went back.
He jumped.
Well, you said we're going to talk about the top 12 and the discrepancies. If CeeDee Lamb at 14 is a topic of conversation, how is AJ Brown, somebody that you're very high on?
Well, you jumped because we were talking about Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
Who's at 13 and 14. So we missed somebody earlier.
No,
so I'm not jumping
because
later.
Anthony, because you don't pause. You don't pause. You just jump into things. We were talking about Chris Godwin.
I know.
And Mike Evans.
How did I lead the conversation? I said I'm going to switch back because you don't listen half the time.
All right.
So
I said switch back to what? Because we hadn't even been talking about the top 12.
We went past, and that's why you went to 13. But I said we missed somebody before as a discrepancy. I said, well, I'm going to close out Godwin and go back because we missed one.
Yeah, but we're talking 13. We're talking 13 below. 11 is before 13.
To summarize, 13. Moose is a little lower on AJ Brown because of injuries, and he's a little worried about Julio. Anthony and I, not so worried. Let's move on our list. We did 13, 14, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. At 15 on our consensus list, we have LA Rams wide receiver Robert Woods.
Anthony, is that okay with you, or should we jump to another player somewhere on the list? Just arbitrarily.
It's like, it's so dumb because like last episode, I agree. I jumped ahead, but when we're talking top 12 discrepancies, we don't want to miss out on something.
But we weren't, Anthony. We were talking 13 and on.
But before the episode, we talk about the only thing we'll bring up in top 12 are big discrepancies.
Yeah, but CeeDee Lamb's that passed, Anthony.
Yeah, but I think the viewers need to know.
Gentlemen.
You're the 3-time champ. And you have AJ Brown low. You have AJ Brown low.
We're not talking about AJ Brown.
Robert Woods. So I think Robert Woods is perennially a very reliable wide receiver. His upside is always limited. I think that last year I was the highest on Robert Woods because he had like the previous season, 2 seasons ago, only 2 touchdowns. And we knew that would regress back up to the mean, a positive regression. And it did. And now with Matt Stafford there, you can't be putting him lower than he was. So I think Robert Woods is a very safe bet. I'd love to have him as a wide receiver 2 on my team because he's pretty reliable to slot in there for double-digit points. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I have Robert Woods 1 above you.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Moose, you got him at 13. I got him at 14.
Anthony has him at 25 because he thinks.
Yeah, I didn't even see him on your list. That is wild.
He's at 25 because I have other late round value players that I think will just.
Well, obviously.
But I think they are more exciting, and I think Robert Woods is just a safety blanket. And as he gets older, he's not going to be as high up as he usually is. So I also think, I mean, we had the beer bet last year where Moose and I were for Cooper Kupp and you were for Woods, or I'm not sure
that
if
beer bet
Moose
that
was involved in that bet, but
he was.
I think Robert Woods will still be effective, but remember, this is our personal draft rankings. I'm not drafting him because I'm looking for guys that'll have the potential to make their way into the top 15 above. Like I want an exciting player. Robert Woods doesn't wow me, so that's why he's so low for me. I brought in a few of the youngsters and guys that might get a lot more targets than he would.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
He was a safety blanket for
right.
Goff. Maybe it won't be as much for Stafford.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Moose, is that satisfactory to you, or can we move on?
Yeah, I just think Robert was probably going to be the same, maybe even slightly better than last season.
Yeah, he's an unexciting pick that's just always right around there, right around that area.
Robert Woods.
All right, at 16, we have Amari Cooper. I don't think we need to discuss this because we did the whole CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper thing. But Amari Cooper, Dallas, if Dak's in there, Amari
Just
Cooper
so we're
should
all
be
keeping
good.
track, though, he was 16. Now we're going on to 17.
Yes, he was 16. Now we're on a 17. DJ Moore. There should be some controversy here. I believe I have DJ Moore at 17, Anthony at 15, Moose 22. So Moose, you're the odd man out. Now, why are you a little bit lower on DJ Moore?
He's quote unquote not an exciting player to me.
I would say he is exciting.
Yeah.
I would say he's arguably maybe a little bit boomer bust last year, but he's very exciting.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. He's not someone I ever try to target. I do think that Carolina is going to have a much better passing game this season, but he's not someone I'm interested in going after. But I do think he probably will be a viable fantasy option if he's somebody that you're targeting.
So you're not interested in going after him. Is that because he was a little bit up and down last year? He had some good games, some really low scoring games.
Yeah, and didn't he miss a bunch of time too?
He didn't miss much time.
He missed one game.
Okay.
I'll tell you though, Curtis Samuel really ate into his production last year, and with Curtis Samuel gone and now on the Washington football team, I think it opens things up for DJ Moore a little bit. Now they do have Carolina Terrence Marshall, this rookie who's supposed to be very good out of LSU, and they do have Dan Arnold, the tight end there.
And
so there is
Robbie. I have a rapport Anderson.
Yeah, Robbie Anderson's already there, but DJ Moore he's not the same type of player of AJ Brown in terms of his physicality, but in terms of his fantasy production, he reminds me a little bit of AJ Brown. He's very efficient. It doesn't take much. He had tons of stats. I think he had 3 games last year. He had 4 receptions for 94 yards and a TD.
Well,
he doesn't need
roughly,
many touches to produce.
Same yardage as AJ Brown, but only 4 tutties to AJ Brown's 11.
Right. So the key is getting in the red zone, which he's more than capable of doing. He needs to be targeted in the red zone. And I think if you look at red zone opportunities, it can be Christian McCaffrey first. And then I think DJ Moore should be the second guy. Curtis Samuel's gone. Robbie Anderson, not exactly a red zone threat. So I think there's that opportunity for DJ Moore to regress to the mean. Positive regression, similar to Robert Woods from the season before.
And I think, speaking of red zone, I think you got to kind of worry about Dan Arnold too, because that's what he did in Arizona.
How many touchdowns did Dan Arnold have? How many does he have in his career?
He sniped a couple for sure.
Okay. I mean, go look up Dan Arnold's career TDs, please, because it's single digits.
So
he's still taking touchdowns away.
Okay.
He had 4.
So same as DJ Moore. Great.
So he's had 4, 2, and 1.
7 career touchdowns for Dan Arnold. Okay. And I do know that one or two of those was a huge bomb from Kyler Murray. So they weren't red zone opportunities. So I'm not super worried about Dan Arnold eating into red zone opportunities, but
I'm not saying be super worried, but he's another mouth to feed.
Sure. Anthony, what's your thoughts on DJ Moore? You have him the highest of all of us.
Yeah. This is a guy, when he came into the NFL, he was one of the wide receiver rookies that I like the most. I love the talent. He's an explosive player. Hasn't been able to be consistent enough under Cam Newton, under Teddy Bridgewater. I'm hoping this year with Curtis Samuel leaving, I know there's a lot of hype behind
settle down there, Anthony. If you're watching YouTube,
that was
wild
crazy.
Things just happened. Settle down. Did you just hammer? Did you just two-handed hammer your microphone there or your laptop?
No, it was a fly.
Okay.
But anyways, getting back to it, I think with Curtis Samuel gone, and Robbie Anderson's already dealing with some injuries. I think this is the right offense, and with a new quarterback, I do think he'll be a little bit more consistent. I am higher than all of you guys, but I still think he's an he's a wide receiver 2 type of guy. Just more, I like the upside this year compared to previous years. I was lower on him last year. I feel a little better about him this year.
Okay. All right, moving on. I'm looking at these names coming up. We got some controversy coming up. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to list out the remainder of our list, and let's talk about the ones that are going to cause the most controversy, because there's several. So DJ Moore was 17. At 18, we have T. Higgins. At 19, Michael Thomas. At
we lost him. He's gone.
Oh,
What you
back.
You went like this, Dave. For people watching YouTube, you went Michael Ta, and then we lost you.
I apologize. Zoom's telling me my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, I apologize. So let's get this. 22 Adam Thielen. So I was at Michael Thomas. Sorry, 20 Deontay Johnson, 21 Cooper Kupp, 22 Adam Thielen, 23 Tyler Lockett, 24 Julio Jones. All right, who are we talking about first?
Well, you're the one who wanted to. You highlighted some controversy.
So the first controversy. T. Higgins, pretty safe at 18. I think we're all pretty in agreement. We all like T. Higgins. Around that spot. 19, Michael Thomas. Moose, you have him at what? 15?
Yeah,
we got to talk about that.
This is a winning strategy. You take him, you put him on your IR. Back half of the season, you win.
I agree, but you would.
Did I not just say that before? And you guys made fun of me.
No. Dave was making fun of you. I did that last season with Deebo Samuel.
I literally, and people can check this on YouTube when you watch it. You were literally laughing at me when I was saying you take him, and I do have him higher than you, but I said you take him because the amount of points this guy. I know there's no Drew Brees.
I must have been laughing at something else, Anthony, because I have agreed with you on this before because I did it last season.
Okay,
but
maybe
Anthony,
you didn't like that.
13. Anthony, you have 13.
I know I have him higher, but I was comparing him to CeeDee Lamb, and the reason why I used them as an example, I think that's maybe why you're laughing, is CeeDee Lamb. Like I said, I do have him above, so he's still going to be good. The good thing about Michael Thomas is we know he's an explosive wide receiver that averages.
Everyone's explosive to you.
No. Just the ones that I'm defending.
Use that term
because, well, I'm defending the players that you guys are low on.
It's an explosive defense.
Your argument.
He's a guy that averages high fantasy points per game. His points per game is ridiculous as a wide receiver. Yes, it was under Drew Brees, but I still think that he's gonna be the center of the offense with Kamara. And
what week do you think he's gonna play? When is he gonna be back?
I don't know. He goes get Carson Wentz's doctor.
He's already had the surgery, so he's rehabbing now.
So, I mean, last year it didn't look good because whenever you thought he was coming back, he didn't come back. I don't know. I say maybe week 5 or 6, you stick him on your IR. Wait, like what Moose said, you stick him on your IR or you stick him on your bench, depending on your league setup, whether you have people on out. I don't know if you'll be under IR or whatever, or doubtful, whatever it is. But you put him on your bench, and then he kills it for you in the back half of the season.
Okay,
you can't
you're
ignore.
Suggesting you draft him as your wide receiver 2? And then put him on your bench. Therefore, your wide receiver 2 will be someone who's you drafted as a wide receiver 3 or 4, and that's going to sustain you for 6 weeks.
Yeah, but there's so much depth at wide receiver. You can definitely pick up, some good options that'll get you through the first half of the season.
What about
and then you're laughing.
Do you think Michael Thomas is going to be drafted? So a 15th overall wide receiver is drafted in like round 3 or 4. Do you think Michael Thomas is going to be drafted in most drafts there?
It's possible, but I mean, that's where I would start thinking about it. I mean, every league's different. Every draft is different. So if you know nobody in your league's going to draft him, then sure, keep waiting. But I mean, he's a pretty awesome asset to have when he comes back.
And keep in mind, Dave, we're not looking at every position here. So we're just talking about our wide receiver. So if we're looking at every position, how we would draft them and how we rank them, he's probably a little lower. But as far as wide receivers in this area, you got to start looking at him like DJ Moore. He's a boomer bust type player where if you look at him beside Michael Thomas, if Michael Thomas is healthy, Michael Thomas is a way better option than DJ Moore. Way more consistent option as well.
With Drew Brees. You also got to factor in.
I don't know.
So,
Jameis looked pretty good.
But also, I've used this argument, and I believe, Dave, you were also on this episode, where how did the receivers do in Tampa Bay when Jameis Winston was there and he threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions?
We're talking fantasy.
Yeah, fantasy. The receivers in fantasy.
Mike Evans was good.
Godwin was number 2
or
3. Yeah. So I mean, Jameis Winston. We're not talking about Jameis Winston throwing interceptions. We're just talking about him getting the ball to the players.
And this is Jameis Winston pre-LASIK.
Right.
Oh yes, he had LASIK surgery. So listen, my main concerns with Michael Thomas are he's rehabbing from injury. He's gonna miss games. 2, the fact that he ghosted the team for 3 months and didn't talk to them and is in a beef with the Saints. Goodness. I could easily see him not returning to the team this year. I think he's, out of all the players we talked about so far today, the hugest risk of all those wide receivers. He has the highest risk out of any of those guys.
Well,
why would you take him as your wide receiver too?
So wait,
there's other people.
Yet we have Tyreek Hill at number 2.
Right.
Tyreek Hill didn't ghost his team.
Tyreek Hill has had his fair share of things that might have kicked him out for the season.
Sure.
Yeah. But also, the way Dave set this up, going against you and I, Moose, is he still didn't say, or maybe I miss it, but I don't think he said where he has him. He was like, oh my gosh, you guys have him so high. Dave doesn't have him ranked in the top 24.
Undraftable.
That's a mistake. That's like almost like trying to predict an injury on a player.
Okay, listeners, I would absolutely not draft Michael Thomas as in the starting position. If he's left over on the board to put on my bench, like Deebo Samuel was for you last year, Moose, because you didn't draft him as your wide receiver 2. You drafted him way late, like round 10.
Michael Thomas is also substantially better than Deebo Samuel.
Okay, yes. I will give you that, granted. But I'm not drafting someone who's going to miss half the season in my wide receiver 2 position. I will gladly take him and put him on my bench, sure, but I'm not drafting him in wide receiver.
So what about Saquon?
What about Saquon? He's not missing half the year. He's not missing half the season.
Yeah, but we know
maybe missing a game or 2.
But we know he's going to have a reduced amount of touches.
We don't know that.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
They've said that.
Okay. We know Michael Thomas is missing what? How many weeks? 6?
It's games? Not official. There was like a 4 to 6 week range. He could come back even week 3 if the recovery goes well.
So if news breaks that he's back before the draft, if you're drafting and you know he's going to be back week 3, changes things. But I don't want someone who's missing half the year.
So I'm gonna make this point to people as well. I know we talk about our main league is a redraft league, and I've brought this up many times before that the year that I won, I had Melvin Gordon as my keeper, Melvin Gordon Roman numeral 3 as my keeper, and I couldn't play him for most of the season because he held out. When he came back, he was not productive. So Moose loves talking about performance in the playoffs. Championship game, Austin Eckler, who I used most of the season instead of him because he wasn't playing. Austin Eckler got me single-digit points in the playoffs. Melvin Gordon, 25. When you have a crazy talent like Michael Thomas, a guy that finishes number 1, number 2 when he is healthy, you can't ignore that talent, especially going in the back half of your season.
Dave, let me put it to you like this. Okay, let's say Michael Thomas is super healthy, like the healthiest he's ever been.
Yeah.
You draft him.
Yep.
Week 1, he gets an injury that's going to put him out for 6 weeks. Do you drop him to the waiver wire?
You put him on IR.
Right. There's your answer.
That's completely different than drafting him to then put him on your IR to start the season.
Why? It's the same thing. Yeah, it is. It's the same thing.
So what? The difference is what? You get one game where he's failed you because he got injured in that first game, and then he goes to your IR. You can't.
No, the difference is draft capital. You can get him later. You can get him later in drafts right now than drafting him in the 3rd or 4th round, like you guys.
He's not a Brandon Cooks or like a Robbie Anderson talent. Like this guy, healthy.
That's not what
with Jameis Winston is a number 1 guy
because he's injured. He won't be drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. You guys you're suggesting to draft him way earlier than you need to get him.
Yeah,
if you want to get him later, you get him later.
You don't need to draft him there. You could take the chance and wait. You could, but I would scoop him up before somebody else does.
Go for it. Great. I'm glad, and I'll pick up. Let's see who's right after this. I'll pick up Deontay Johnson or DJ Moore or
Mr. Lead the season in drops. Like that's very.
Moose,
almost as reliable.
Is very high on Deontay Johnson now. Moose is very hyped on Deontay Johnson.
I mean, if he's not dropping the ball, he's a very good fantasy asset.
Right. And he's peppered with targets.
Peppered, salted.
So, I mean, if he drops, I mean, this is a ridiculous number I'm giving, but if he gets like 20 targets a game and he catches 10, I mean, he's still pretty good for your fantasy team. But
yeah, that's crazy.
He had a crazy amount of targets per game last year. Ben Roethlisberger is better. Hopefully, Deontay Johnson, apparently he did work on his ball handling.
Yeah,
So,
Anthony, speaking of balls, I don't want to break yours, but I just want to let people know that Michael Thomas was 19, Deontay Johnson's are 20.
yeah.
I just saying we moved on to the next player.
But I was just talking about Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, but we sort of rolled into it. Didn't let people know that Deontay Johnson was our 20th.
Okay, well, 20th is Deontay Johnson. But listen,
but then talk to him. I didn't roll into the next one. So,
okay. Is there anyone else? So we got Deontay Johnson, Cooper Kupp, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, Julio Jones, rounding out our list. Is there anyone else or someone who's not on the list that you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, Anthony has Tyler Lockett higher than us by quite a bit.
So I have Tyler Lockett at 19. Dave has him at 21. And then Moose has him 29th.
Yeah. I own Tyler Lockett, and he's very talented playing football, but redraft fantasy football, way too boomer bust for my likings.
He is last year he was the biggest boomer bust wide receiver I felt.
That one week he gets you 50 points plus, fantastic. But every other week you are going to be in a nightmare.
But so that might not be permanent. That might not be permanent. Like he could turn into less of a boom bust. Even if he's just a little bit more consistent, then he could be a reliable wide receiver 2 on your fantasy team.
So this is okay. So I know we had a big debate. I think it was earlier in the offseason about him. So I'm going to correct some things that I said. So I had said I drafted him at wide receiver 2. He was at my wide receiver 2, I believe I said. And I went in one of our leagues, I went to the playoffs. The point that I just want to bring up is that I did draft him as a flex option, and he ended up going in my wide receiver 2 category because of those boomer bust games. But I think we talked about this before, that you pay him that money because you do want to feature him. DK Metcalf, without a doubt, is the wide receiver 1. But I think
Metcalf.
But you just have to believe in the coaching staff that what has been their downfall in the previous seasons and why they haven't gotten over the hump and they just kind of stay where they are, that they should feature Tyler Lockett more, because we all know he's talented. It's just whether Russell Wilson and the coaching staff call enough plays for Lockett to be consistent. But I don't think you should drop him out of the wide receiver 2 category when he is that talented. So he might not. You could be right, but I think it's very low to drop him. I think you had him at 29th.
For me, it's it's just, I feel like it's risky. I don't know. Like I said, I own Tyler Lockett, so I'm all part of the Tyler Lockett nightmare. And week to week, when he does really well, then does really poorly, that lack of consistency is brutal.
So I'll just bring up one point because I don't want to go too long over it. So DJ Moore is the same type of player, but except on his boom games, he doesn't boom as much as Tyler Lockett, but you have DJ Moore higher. And Tyler Lockett finishes higher. So that's the same player, but one is not as this is like true explosive compared to the other.
Yeah. I mean, I know what we're getting from Tyler Lockett and Russ. Yeah. I think honestly Carolina is going to be a little bit more, quote unquote exciting.
But unproven, I know
that's a big statement.
Yeah. All right.
Because I honestly, like, obviously they're going to utilize Christian McCaffrey, but there's no way they're running him into the ground again. I think they're gonna pass the ball a lot more.
But unlike Saquon Barkley, they're not limiting his snap counts or his
we don't know. We don't know.
But they didn't say it. So I mean, it's better than Saquon Barkley's situation, that's for sure. But yeah.
All right. Well, is that it for wide receiver 2 rankings, gentlemen?
I think so.
Yeah.
The official list will be on 3B Fantasy Pod on Instagram. So if you're not already following us, go check out 3B Fantasy Pod on Instagram. We're also on Twitter, Gmail, Facebook. Send us your feedback. And don't forget to listen to us live at our new time, 10 p.m. Eastern, every Wednesday night on Halftime Sports. Come check us out. You can talk to us directly. And wow, I mean,
our rankings will also be posted there.
Yes, and if you have any input or opinions on those wide receiver rankings, come talk to us. Come debate us about them on Halftime Sports Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. All right, guys, I think it's time for the next segment, which is You're Welcome. That Dave's back. They said it on Reddit.
So good.
Boom.
Good. So this one's coming from user Jordy428. Which players always end up on your squad year after year? Was thinking about this today. I've drafted Dalvin Cook 3 times in his 4 seasons. I don't necessarily hunt him out, but it always just seems to work out that way. Are there any players you just seem to end up with every year, or maybe guys you end up targeting every year?
Yeah. Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. And you done good last year, Moose. You done good.
I won 2 of my championships had Diggs on it.
There you go.
Can you digs it? Can you digs it?
Oh, I digs it.
For me, it was it ends up Mike Evans.
Yeah, you mentioned
I had
that
Mike
earlier.
Evans on redraft. I've had him as a keeper. I have him on my dynasty team. I got a lot of Mike Evans everywhere, and it just kind of ends up that way. I'm not targeting him per se, but it ends up like he falls me in the draft. I'm like, I guess I got to take Mike Evans, and he's done good. He's done good for me. There's definitely been games where I'm pulling my hair out where he gets like a goose egg,
like playoff games.
No, that's actually, Moose, your whole take on the playoff games is completely unsubstantiated.
Yeah, I know.
So
but
it's
he
completely
doesn't
not
listen.
based in fact. It's based in like
Yeah.
one playoff game ever.
It's just
and
speaking
actually
louder
yeah,
over us.
Yeah, and actually last year he was fantastic. So
Yeah.
good on you, Mike Evans. How about you, Anthony?
So I have 2 guys. One is Julio Jones, but I mean, this will be the first year that I'm going to actually avoid him. But the other guy is a bench guy. So I know Moose and I have gone back and forth about this guy in the past, how he's not an exciting player, but Jarvis Landry, he's usually a bench. He's on my bench in a lot of leagues, but when
As he should be.
As he should be. But
Yeah.
when there have been injuries to my starters, he is more than, you're not worried if he's going to give you your double-digit points.
Yeah, you should be. Anthony, I got to give you some flack because you just said you wouldn't draft Julio Jones this season. You just said that, right?
Well, no, I said I would try to avoid him as much as possible.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, because I do. Yeah,
because you have him at 21. So
well, Moose, can you not jump back into the rankings? We're on.
Well, I just wanted to clarify.
No, but we
I wanted to clarify your statement.
Oh, okay. But we're on the Reddit segment, so yeah.
Yeah, just clarifying.
Moose,
you're
Moose,
not
you're
gonna,
jumping all over the place. No, Moose, you're jumping all over the place, man. Come
Yeah.
on, get serious.
We gotta get back on track here. But yeah, I don't know. I guess this also depends on. I remember I had 2-3 seasons in a row where I was drafting from the same spot, and some of these players, these middle of the pack players always seem to fall around the same rounds, and you see them there, you're like, oh, he didn't let me down last year. So I mean, that's why Landry has found himself on my teams. But again, he's not an exciting player, but he should be on your bench, and he's just a cover-up matchup based. Or if Odell Beckham misses the entire season, that's where his value will be.
Which he might. Apparently he's back on. He's only just now in 11-on-11 drills.
Yeah. So I don't think he's going to start week 1.
Yeah. All right. Well, and in terms of fantasy, sometimes you fall in love with players, and you do target them from year to year, but sometimes you got to look at it fresh. Like if you're in a dynasty league, you got no choice; they're your players. But when you're in redraft, you kind of just got to base it. I think a lot of it is dictated by the position you're drafting from,
Right?
And that really the position you're drafting from will change. If front end or back end will change a lot who's available to you, and that'll dictate.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, boy.
We apologize, listeners.
We apologize for Dave's not good connection.
I mean,
my bad. How long was I out?
Who knows?
Yeah. Could be a
Right.
week. Could be 30 seconds. We
I'm
just don't know.
sorry. Cambridge, Ontario, guys.
You were
Cambridge, Ontario
saying-
Wi-Fi.
You were saying the players you get at the back end could be substantially different from the players you're getting at the first.
Yeah, and that's the important part. First end, front end. That's it. Let's move on, guys. I've been drinking an Ontario IPA, Life in the Clouds. It's New England style IPA, 6.1%. It's a doozy, but I believe it's made here in Ontario. Can you guys still hear me? It's from Hamilton, Ontario.
We can still hear you. You're still good.
Life in the Clouds. It's a delicious IPA.
I'll give you guys one guess each at what I'm drinking.
Heineken.
It's a Heineken.
Ah.
And for me, I came from a work gatherings where I was drinking, but I am not drinking here. I am sitting in the humidity in my apartment without AC. And as you can see for the YouTube listeners, I am glistening right now. I am shiny. It's hot.
Yeah.
And Dave, you look a bit hot too.
Oh, it's hot. The humidity out east, guys. I don't know. However, I mean, I guess we were always by the pool in the summers growing up and into our teenagehood. Young adults were always by the pool. But holy smokes, do I notice a difference now being on the West Coast, coming back? I'm like, it's hot. I'm just sweating. I'm just like working out. Like most of my day here on vacation is like planning for sweat. Like I got to bring an extra shirt. Got to bring a wick away shirt, athletic shirt. Am I going to be near a pool? Yes, no. Is it going to have air conditioning? Probably can't go if there's no air conditioning. It's humid out here, guys. I don't know how you do it. Just move out west. Let's all
air
just
conditioning.
move out west. Yeah, well, you had your place so hot the other day. Blast that. And then when I come back, because I'm coming back to Montreal, and we're gonna do drafts at your place. Let's blast the AC.
I think you're just also a hot person because it was.
I am hot.
It was pretty cool in the house.
Thank you. Pretty hot. I am pretty hot. Yeah. No, I do run hot. It's extra degree or two for me. But yeah. So delicious IPAs and pools are the solution for the humidity. Is that it? Can you guys still hear me? I can never know if I'm frozen.
Yeah. No, we hear you. We hear you.
Okay, great.
You were just going on about things. We're letting you go.
All right. Well, you guys have any words of wisdom for us?
Always put your best gut forward,
and definitely be wearing sunscreen.
If
it's over 295 Kelvin worldwide right now.
Bring your Wickaware and your sunscreen.
Your Wickaware. All right. Well, as always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.